And we begin with that taxi story, the development of a new cab called the CR6, which Graham Addicut revealed here more than 2 years ago was to make its debut on our streets, backed by £3 million of our money. Well, I haven't seen one yet, have you? Maybe Graham can tell us why.
This black cab's on Spaghetti Junction in the Midlands, not on London's Westway, because although like Buckingham Palace and the Tower, the cab has become one of the great tourist symbols of the capital, actually the majority of them are in cities like Glasgow, Liverpool and Birmingham. For the last 30 years, the black cab has been made by a company called Carbodies based in Coventry. They turn out over 2,000 cabs a year, the largest market being London, where at present there are over 13,000 FX4Ss, as they're called, on the road. For over 27 years, the basic shape has remained virtually unchanged. And because the design was so old, special features such as the ability to carry passengers in wheelchairs were non-existent. So over a decade ago, Carbodies began designing the cab of the 80s. Due out originally at the end of 1981, the CR6, as it's called, has still not appeared. This one, which we filmed in 1983, was being tested by the Ministry of Transport. The government's pumped massive funds into the CR6, and even the GLC gave Carbodies £700,000 to make sure that the cab, although designed for general work, could also carry disabled passengers.
Well, I'm disappointed because the CR6 has been going for some time now in research. It's not into production. I would have hoped it had been in production by now. The government put a lot of money in because it is a specialised taxi for the disabled, and the longer it goes on, of course, the disabled are not getting the benefit of it.
Do you know what kind of figures we're talking about? How much public money is in there?
Well, I've put questions down, and I can't get an absolute satisfactory answer because other people's private money is involved as well. But I'm led to believe through rumour that it's close on £3 million of public money that's in there now, and they're hoping production will be in 1987.
Carbodies owners, Manganese Bronze, deny holding on to public funds.
Well, we haven't held on to any of the money. I can assure you that it's all been spent. For every £1 that the government have put into this project, we put at least £3 of our own money. And before the job's done, I think it will be nearer £4 for every £1 of the government money. But you'll also have to appreciate that £2.5 million, what we're talking about, is petty cash in as far as the motor industry is concerned.
But not to some cabbies who claim it's taxpayers' money down the drain.
There were supposed to be several thousand of them on the streets by now. It's late, maybe it will see the light of day, but I had the pleasure, dubious pleasure, of seeing a prototype up in Coventry a couple of years ago. And nobody who saw it was actually ecstatic about the machine.
I don't think you'll ever see it. I saw the chassis, must be 12 years ago. This was going to be the new thing. It's never appeared. I don't think you ever will see it appear.
One fact that seems to uphold cabbies' cynicism is that Carbodies, now trading under the name London Taxis International, introduced a new, larger-engined version of the traditional FX4 cab just before Christmas. Understandably, perhaps, the about-to-be-defunct GLC aren't too pleased.
It's a criticism of the capitalist system that Carbodies was taken over by another company that then appeared to wait a whole year before deciding to continue with the new vehicle, and I regret that decision.
In an effort to head off that kind of criticism, Carbodies have introduced a conversion package whereby cabbies can have their present vehicle adapted to enable it to take disabled passengers. But even that doesn't escape criticism, as it costs around £1,600 for each taxi, that bill to be borne by the owner. The conversion hasn't yet been passed for use on the roads by London's notoriously tough Public Carriage Office. The manufacturers deny the conversion is a ploy to delay the CR6 even further.
If you appreciate, there's 28,000 of this type of vehicle operating as taxis in the UK. And even if a production model was coming out tomorrow, it would take a lot of years to turn that park of vehicles over. So we thought the need immediately is to start for specialised areas which the need was demanding.
In their defence, the company claimed the CR6 was held up by the government itself, demanding costly changes in the design. It'll now appear, they say, in 1987. The bad news for Car Bodies, or London Taxis International as they now call themselves, is they're not alone in their desire to create a new cab. Here on the outskirts of Birmingham, at Metro Camel Wayman, who make buses and luxury coaches, they've been working on a taxi project since 1983. They're now at the stage where they have to decide whether to actually go into production or not. But if the secrecy surrounding Car Bodies now is somewhat surprising, it's nothing compared to the situation here. Metro wouldn't let us film in their factory or give us any details of their cab. The reason they quoted was the very nature of the taxi market.
It's a fairly limited market, the taxi business. The police design requirements for the vehicle discourage manufacturers from entering the field of manufacture. Also, it is, as I say, a limited market. So therefore, if a competitive vehicle came onto the streets, there's only really room for one manufacturer. And obviously it would worry the present manufacturers, Car Bodies.
Metro Camel Wayman won't let anybody have a look at their new prototype. Why are they so secretive about it?
I imagine purely for commercial reasons. If they reveal their hand, the other manufacturers might bring the CR6 forward. If Metro Camel came out fairly swiftly, unannounced as it were, it would jeopardise the production of CR6. So what you've got is two medium-sized industrial taxi manufacturers playing cat and mouse with one another. I think the attractive thing about the Metro cab, as far as the trade is concerned, it would at least have a choice. If we had two vehicles on the streets as taxis, we would have a choice of vehicle, where at the moment we only have the choice of one. There is a monopoly supply situation in taxi cabs.
The cabbies blame the present monopoly on the Public Carriage Office.
If I took a Rolls-Royce up there and said, I'd like to have this licence as a cab, please, they'd say, oh, sorry, that's not fit for public use. Now, you've got the Queen, right? She drives about in one. That's your ethnic minority. But the rest of us, so you can't let everybody else get into a Rolls-Royce. They must have one of these. It's all nonsense.
Over the last 4 years, the figures calculated show that this vehicle has risen at £30 a week from £6,400 to £12,500.
Do you think that's because it's a monopoly?
Personally, yes.
Car Bodies deny the present cab is overpriced and say the CR6, when it comes out, won't cost much more. But for some politicians, it's not how much it will cost, but how much it's already cost the taxpayer that's worrying.
Whether there are more hiccups in it than we know at the present time, I don't know, but it's my intention to continue to find out exactly what the problems are.
Do you think the CR6 will ever make it?
Well, one wonders as time goes on. Of course, Campbell Laird have been experimenting also with a disabled taxi, and it will be rather amusing, to say the least, if the Campbell Laird one comes out into production before the CR6.
Vivian Bendel and other politicians seem a bit worried about the fact that it's taken so long and how much money is being put into it. Does that worry you as a company?
Even if it takes longer, that the politicians would like. It is more important, in our view, to make a good vehicle than produce it earlier to satisfy some political need. There have been too many cases in England of things being rushed out for this reason. It's hard to compare a taxi with the R101 airship, but there was a prime example of things being got out for political reason and not properly technically approved. We do not want to make that mistake with our taxi.